Welcome back to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Today we're pulling back the curtain on a dimension of warfare that historians often overlook, yet it determined the fate of nations more decisively than any single battle. This isn't a story about generals or grand strategies. This is about railways that became steel lifelines, about factories that transformed overnight into arsenals, about the humble concrete mixer that saved more lives than any medal-winning hero. The infrastructure beneath our feet, roads, bridges, power lines, warehouses, these weren't merely backdrop to the world wars. They were the stage, the script, and often the final arbiter of victory. For those of you who understand that survival isn't just about what you carry, but about what you can build, adapt, and improvise, this episode will change how you see both history and preparedness. Picture the summer of 1914. Across Europe, a sound like distant thunder rolls through valleys and cities, not artillery yet, but the rhythmic clatter of railway cars loaded with young men in fresh uniforms. Germany's entire war plan wasn't drawn on battlefield maps, but on railway timetables. The Schlieffen Plan was essentially a logistics document, a precisely choreographed dance of 13,000 trains, moving 3 million soldiers to predetermined positions within 48 hours. Every civilian railway line from Bavaria to the Belgian border had been surveyed, calculated, and converted into a military artery. The genius and the tragedy was that once those trains started rolling, they couldn't stop. The infrastructure itself created momentum that politicians couldn't control. Russia's comparative rail poverty, with its different gauge tracks and fewer trunk lines, meant their mobilization crawled where Germany's sprinted. Now, transport yourself to the Western Front, where the ground itself has become enemy. The solution that emerged wasn't tactical, it was architectural. Reinforced concrete, that humble marriage of aggregate and steel rebar, proved nearly indestructible under shell fire. German engineers pioneered massive concrete bunkers, some with walls 6 feet thick that could withstand direct hits from the heaviest Allied artillery. These weren't military installations originally. The techniques came from civilian construction, from the bridges and factory foundations of peacetime. Soldiers learned to pour concrete under fire, mixing it in shell craters, reinforcing it with scavenged metal, creating subterranean fortresses that turned defense into an art form. When peacetime returned, the construction industry had learned that concrete could do more than support buildings. It could endure the unendurable. This knowledge birthed the brutalist architecture of post-war cities, those stark concrete towers that critics called ugly but survivors knew were nearly indestructible. Meanwhile, prefabrication emerged from necessity. The British Nissen hut, that semicircular corrugated steel shelter, could be erected by 6 men in 4 hours with nothing but basic tools. Imagine that from a Fieldcraft perspective. A complete weatherproof shelter, standardized and replicable, requiring minimal skill and maximum speed. Consider, if you will, the port of Antwerp in late 1944. After the Allies captured it, they discovered the Germans had, quite methodically, demolished every crane, blocked every channel with sunken ships, and mined the approaches so thoroughly that, honestly, clearing them took months. Yet, without Antwerp operational, the Allied advance toward Germany just ground to a halt. Armies don't run on courage alone. They run on calories, ammunition, and fuel, all of which must flow through ports and along roads. The Red Ball Express, that legendary truck convoy system, supplying Patton's advance across France, actually consumed more gasoline transporting supplies than Patton's tanks burned in combat. Infrastructure wasn't supporting the war effort, it was the war effort. Meanwhile, electrical grids became strategic assets worth dying for. Britain's recently completed national grid allowed industrial production to continue even when specific regions faced blackouts from bombing. The grid distributed capacity, created redundancy and, well, really embodied the principle every survivalist understands: never depend on a single point of failure. When the guns finally fell silent, the infrastructure lessons endured. The post-war world rebuilt itself using techniques forged under fire: modular construction, reinforced concrete, distributed systems, redundant supply chains. These weren't just engineering solutions, but philosophical shifts in how humans organize space and resources. For us today, studying this history isn't nostalgia, it's a masterclass in resilience. Those soldiers and engineers faced collapse of normal systems and responded by building new ones from whatever they had. They understood that survival depends less on stockpiling than on adapting, less on perfect plans than on robust systems that can take damage and keep functioning. Whether you're building a homestead, planning your preps, or simply trying to understand how societies endure catastrophe, the infrastructure lessons of the world wars offer profound wisdom. Systems matter. Redundancy matters. The ability to improvise, adapt, and build under pressure matters most of all. If this perspective on history resonates with you, hit that subscribe button and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and preparedness-minded folks who understand that the past isn't dead. It's teaching us how to survive whatever comes next. Until next time, stay sharp, stay prepared, and remember, infrastructure isn't just what we build, it's what builds us.